Okay, welcome. This is the famed Florentine Alakiza.
Thank you.
Fashion designer who found fortune in fan power. Thank you for coming to ELC, Excellence in Leadership Conference for 2016. We're happy to have you here. Please put your hands together for
the pleasure is mine.
You ended your presentation by saying that people should be ready to pay the price for success. Now, the first question I'd like to ask is, you're not the first person to have gotten an all block, and people have gotten all blocks after you. What is it that you've done differently that has taken you to the top and made you the world's richest black man?
I made God my focus right from the very beginning. And I think that taking that singular step right from the start, entering into that covenant with Him, made all the difference. I didn't know God. I didn't know Jesus. It was after I entered into that covenant that I began to know Him. That was when I got born again. I got born again at the age of 40. And it was when it seemed as if nothing was going to come through. After I'd applied a couple of times and they weren't responses and I was getting frustrated, I turned to Jesus. I began to look for Him everywhere. I was going from church to church. And of course, I found Him. And I just regret the fact that I didn't find Him earlier. Because each time I hear His name, each time I think about what God says, each time that I hear from Him, I wonder what took me so long in knowing Him. So for those who do not yet know Him, the first thing I say to them is, you're missing out. You really do need to know Jesus. So I thank God that was that was the catalyst. The point where I said, I surrender, Lord. I'd like to enter into covenant with you. I got to a point in my Bible where I read about covenant making, and that God always plays His part. And I meant it when I entered into that covenant with Him, that I would serve Him all the days of my life. And that's what I'm doing. And it's one of the reasons I believe that I was invited to be here.
Well, you can applaud properly, actually. 40 years to find Jesus, and after finding Him, it took you 15 years before you struck oil. If you were to...
First oil.
Say again?
Before you struck first oil. First oil is when you begin to, not when you begin to exploit it, explore it, but when you begin to exploit it. And that is when the oil starts coming out.
So is it possible that Jesus wanted to know whether you were with Him for good, and that's why He kept you going on for 15 years? And maybe the question I should ask is, if all of that were to be taken away from you today, would you continue to serve Jesus?
I would continue to serve Jesus, because I found out that it's not about money. It's about everything, and it's about eternity.
So Jesus means it.
Yes.
You started your presentation by making a call for volunteers. You're probably doing something, and I'd like you to share, if you would, if you don't mind.
I'm not doing something related to the exercise that we went through, but I had to make it sound real.
Okay.
To be able to get the right people upstanding and stand up for their dreams.
Does this have anything to do with your philanthropy work?
No, it doesn't. See, I got you there. You two you still think there's a project. No.
Okay.
It was an exercise to make the point that there's a price to pay for success.
Okay. Now, your time is shared these days between things like this, preaching, sharing your stories, talking to the motherless, the widows, how are you able to juggle all of this with the fame and the fortune that you enjoy and managing your family? Because I know you have a family of 4 boys, and I know it's not an easy thing managing boys and men.
I give all glory to God. It all takes grace, it takes planning, and it takes family support. If your family believes in what you're doing, you'll get their support. And if you get their support, you'll have a balanced life. And if you have a balanced life, of course, you'll be able to continue to reach out. And I also believe that God goes ahead of me, and He's the one that's been opening those doors. And for as long as He's the one who's in charge, in control, He will make sure that even your enemies will be at peace with you.
When the way of man pleases the Lord, even his enemies will be at peace. Do you have enemies?
Do you see anybody that doesn't have enemies? We all have enemies.
I don't have enemies because I don't have billions.
You don't have to have billions before you have enemies. A child that was born into the world this minute already has enemies. A child that's in the womb already has enemies. Yes, it's not about the money. So long as you are a human being, you have enemies. Because the forces of evil are all around us.
What is the one thing that you want your audience to take away from all of your presentation? The one thing that you want everybody to do?
The one thing is they should not look at what they see in the physical. They should look unto Jesus, the source of all that we've been talking about. Because He's the one that can lead, that can direct, that can open doors, that can take you from one point to the other. You can plan all day long and it can come to nothing if you don't add the God factor into your life. And that's Jesus.
We have gentlemen from the press, print, electronic, online, and they're eager to ask questions. So I'm going to ask to get ready to answer questions from the audience. Questions, please. Okay, it's a lady front here.
My name is Adenike Sonda from Blackface Radio, an online radio station. I want to ask you now that what advice do you have for women, especially in this time of recession? So many women are going through a lot with what is going on now in terms of their families, in terms of their career, in terms of business. From research that we media have made, we discover that most women are not really happy with what is going on in the country, but because they are women and because they are mothers, they do not have a choice. So what advice do you have for them that will help to, like yesterday, a doctor was saying that the women have, that there are so many women in the hospital now because of either have high blood pressure, and it's all because of what is going on in the country right now. It's all because of how the economy is. So what would be your advice for women?
I don't understand what you mean by because they are women. And so what? So what? Because they're women. What a woman can do, what a man can do, a woman can do. So are you saying that men are going through the same? Men are going through what women are going through. The whole economy, the whole population is going through the economic downturn. But what I would say is that apart from looking unto God as our helper, who's our helper, you understand me? We need to take some practical steps. There are many things that we ourselves are doing wrong as a nation and as a people. We have done things that we've done outside the way God would have liked them to be done. And there's a price to pay. We are paying that price now. We all know what has been happening in Nigeria. A lot of things are coming out into the open, but everybody has to pay the price. And that's what we're going through. I see it as a learning process. The ills that have taken place in our country is now teaching us a lesson. We've been too docile over the years as a people. We've allowed others to get away with a lot of evil that they've been doing. Those who have done those evils and continue to do those evils, they should pay the price of what they've done. Everybody is bearing the brunt now. But we need to learn from our past mistakes before it can get better. Some of the things that we do, I want to leave politics out of it, but some of the things that we do as a people, we don't cut our coats according to our clothes. Things we can't afford, we want to be seen with the Joneses. We want to pretend as if we can afford those things. And one of the things I talk about is Ashwebi. Because you said just now that especially the women, it's women that are the major culprits when it comes to Ashwebi. They believe that they must be seen wearing the same thing, that Osa is wearing the same thing, that BC is wearing the same thing that others are wearing. It's not right. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Live within your means. What are you teaching your children when you're overstretching yourself? You can't really put food on your table. Your husband is struggling and you're his helper. But rather than help him in the right manner, you're taking out of the housekeeping money to buy Ashwebi. For what? Do you really need it? I used to do it, but I had to apply wisdom. When my husband and I were courting, I remember he said to me specifically in 1977, that financial, what are you gaining from this Ashwebi matter? I sat down and I thought about it. I do not take Ashwebi.